about 4 out of 10 jobs in the Philippines are, quote, highly exposed to artificial intelligence, which could be both good or bad for the workforce. In a report released on December 20, the International Monetary Fund notes that 36% of jobs here has high AI component, especially those in the service-based sector. Most work is complementary with technology, which means AI can support rather than replace tasks performed by humans.
On the flip side, 14% of local jobs can be disrupted, meaning AI can replace this segment of the workforce and take over human tasks. With this, the IMF is encouraging government to beef up digital education and infrastructure to strengthen social safety nets. And let's bring in an expert. We have Dominic Vincent Ligot, Technology and AI Head of the IT and BPM Association of the Philippines. Welcome to the Big Story, Doc, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Doc, Doc is your name or Doc is your title?
Call me Doc. That's my name.
That's your name, okay. Well, do you agree with the numbers? So this is an IMF report, a country report for 2024. Do you agree with the numbers?
Yeah, if you look at historically, the IMF has not, has been saying this for some time. As early as January this year, they mentioned the same statistics. But I think the tone has changed a bit. We're now at the end of 2024. It's almost 2 years since ChatGPT came out. There's a bit more urgency coming from the IMF. So certainly we agree in IBPAP that we need to have a look at what AI can do. And the BPO sector is actually on top of this trend.
More urgency. So do you think the government has felt this urgency, or it has not yet felt this urgency?
Well, I can't speak for government, but certainly
from what you see.
Yeah, we have to think that we don't exist in a vacuum. In other words, we can take our time looking at AI and adopting it, but other countries are also looking at it. I think it was just this week or 2 weeks ago when South Korea passed their AI law. And countries are now, I think going into 2025, regulating AI and looking at AI for innovation will be top of the agenda.
Let's break down the numbers. 36% of jobs highly exposed to AI, but only 14% of the total workforce are at risk of being replaced. So, ibig sabihin, meron tayong 12% highly complementary jobs. How does that translate on the ground?
Well, think about how AI is being used now. Before ChatGPT, AI was kind of a niche technology. You only use it for research. But nowadays, it's pervasive. I think LinkedIn was the one who said 86% of Filipinos, on LinkedIn at least, are using some form of AI, and that's ahead of the global average of 75%. So adoption is really quite high. Now, I think where IMF is coming from, interestingly, AI looks at white-collar kind of work now. No? Before, we kind of expected it to go after the blue-collar type of occupation, physical labor.
Like yung mga factory jobs.
Factory jobs. But by the way, that will come soon. Pero nauna yung white-collar work. And the BPO sector is obviously in that category.
In the BPO industry, which jobs are being replaced by AI?
Well, we have to be, I think, more circumspect. When you say replaceable, doesn't mean they're really being replaced. I think IBPAP was, to my knowledge, the first industry association that has put out numbers in terms of the impact. I think Jack Madrid a couple of months ago said 8% of our members have already reported job losses. But then 13% on the flip side have reported job gains. So it's not a one-track thing. There are new jobs getting created, new jobs getting automated. So I think that's also where IMF is coming from. They kind of hedge, no? They say replaceable or augmentable. So I think the message is really for the government. If you do something, you can benefit from it. But if you don't, then there's potential risks to the labor force.
We do know that the IT BPM industry is evolving. As you mentioned, meron tayong mga virtual assistants now. We deal with chatbots even when we shop online, right?
Yeah.
That's a common experience by the consumer. But also, Jack Madrid was saying that there needs to be other specialties developed by the IT BPM industry where that can come in to support the technologies at hand. So what kinds of jobs are you seeing now?
Yeah, so let's split it. No? Traditionally, when you say AI, well, we kind of infer like these are software engineers, AI engineers, data scientists, because they're the guys who build the AI or tweak it. Certainly, we need more of those. But the vast opportunity, at least 70% of the population in BPOs are users of AI. So this can be your typical call center agents, back office work. But instead of doing everything manually, like traditionally, they're now augmented
What do you mean by
by
users
AI.
of AI? Like, alam natin kasi ChatGPT.
Correct.
But how do they use AI?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a use case that's very popular in BPOs. It's called Agent Assist. So imagine you're a call center agent, you get a call. AI is already listening into your call and already suggesting based on what the customer is saying, customer probably needs this, this, this. So something that might have taken 30 minutes to resolve is now done in 5 minutes. So the vast majority of the implementations of AI are kind of in
So
that
the
area.
more complicated communication will be now directed to a human being.
I think humans will still be there, but it's more about efficiency. So maybe let's say you do 100 calls a day. Now you can do 500 calls a day because of the efficiencies of AI.
Can AI overrule the human and say, for example, oh, no, that's not the right answer?
I think right now the majority is AI suggesting, but there is a concept, for example, another term that's been become popular is AI ethics now, because everyone's implementing AI. There's a concept called human in the loop. You always want to keep humans on top of AI in case it makes a mistake. You can override it rather than the other way around.
Doc, I'm looking at the table made by IMF. Parang tinatamaan talaga dito is clerical support. It's got the biggest chunk of, and this is the 14% that 1 out of every 7 jobs might be lost to AI. Clerical support, I don't know exactly how they define clerical support. I suppose what, admin?
Back office work.
Back office work.
I think also includes contact center workers. Everything is like clerical support. I think the bottom line here is there's a conventional wisdom that less developed countries are more into physical labor, so they're not as affected by AI. But the Philippines is kind of an interesting case because we're a service industry.
Yeah.
We have the second largest IT BPM sector in the world, just second to India. So certainly it's in our best interest to look at how AI will affect us.
Coming in second, I think, is services and sales. Also a big chunk of it affected by AI. And technicians.
Oh, paano yung
surprisingly.
technicians?
Well, there are many kinds of technicians. I think majority here will be anyone operating a computer, so software developers, data analysts. Again, replaceable doesn't mean replaced. You know, the vast majority is augmenting, getting more productivity out of people. I think the other thing we need to also look at is, syempre, these are jobs being sent from the US primarily. 70% of our sector is based on North America. So a lot of it also depends on how the US will send more work. And traditionally, it's been low-level, maybe mid-level jobs. Americans don't want to do that. Send it here. Now it will be a mix, no? Low-level, mid-level, plus AI jobs can potentially be sent to the Philippines.
How about the sales part? I mean, how do we imagine that?
I think sales is generally still going to be human-driven. Maybe the fulfillment of the sale. Because one thing that, because talking to a lot of AI vendors, there's a lot operating in the BPO sector now. I think one clamor pa rin of people taking calls is you want to hear a human voice on the other side of the line. Even if sometimes that human voice is actually AI na, but you crave that, maybe that human connection. That's why in the BPO sector, as early as 2023, the sector has been very proactive. What are those use cases where we can get AI to be implemented? Contrary to kind of the conventional wisdom that call centers are going to get wiped out. The trend is actually anything but. The industry continues to grow. I think on average we were growing at about 8%. Now it's going to be closer to 7%, despite all of these.
So you mean to say that the direction is not streamlining the workforce?
No, it's both. But the thing is, there's a stat we always look at. Out of the total outsourceable jobs, like everything, only about 30% has been outsourced. And that includes India. So there's still a huge demand for these services. I think our challenge now is, do we have the capacity to absorb that work? And with AI, it actually improves capacity. So I think that's it's counterintuitive. Just because you can use AI to automate work doesn't mean you will lessen your headcount. It just means you can grow faster, diba, services-wise.
The menial task you delegate to the
if you do it
AI.
right,
Di lang yun. It's hybrid because AI doesn't just do menial stuff. It also helps you think, brainstorm, write content. So nagiging ano siya. I think our term is AI augmentation rather than AI automation.
But does this mean that there will be a preference for a younger, more technological, adaptive workforce?
That's an excellent point. So, of course, there's no free lunch. for this thing to really play out, we need a huge effort to upskill everyone. And it's not just the technical upskilling. Certainly, we need the software developers, AI engineers. But the users of AI also need to know how to operate with AI. You're going to have to change your workflow to include AI in it. There's a common skill now that's becoming popular called prompting or prompt engineering. This is you just prompting AI to get an output. That's not being taught in schools yet, but
you have
in
to ask the
BPOs.
right questions to get the right answer.
Correct. Not just the right questions in the right way.
In the right way.
So
Naalala mo
Otherwise,
yung-
you get the wrong
naalala
answer.
mo yung,
You get sidetracked.
When we were kind of experimenting with the Facebook Messenger AI, we're trying to get images.
Create images.
Oh,
Yeah.
but
did you get interesting images?
yeah, it was
Yeah, but,
quite.
you know,
but
it's
you have
it's
to know
an
how to
art
prompt
of,
it.
ano,
Exactly.
prompting, eh.
Correct. And that actually raises, I talked about ethics earlier. Like, these are general purpose tools. You can ask it to write anything, create any image. So there's now an added challenge. How do you keep them ethical? You know, don't violate copyright, don't violate privacy, don't do fake news in the case of journalists. I think that's a new problem that didn't exist before.
Well, it seems to be a little bit more controlled, right? We were trying to. I mean, tinitingnan namin, in-explore namin yung limits and bounds of that in terms of like sensitive issues like race, for example, or gender. It was quite sensitive.
Yeah, the guardrails are there. Actually, that's one thing that's also counterintuitive. Of all the industries, to my knowledge, it's the BPO sector that has a wealth of data, all these calls, all these transactions that can be used to keep AI like safe and guardrailed. And I think that's something worth emulating for other industries if they want to start implementing AI. You need good data first, so your AI will also perform well.
Doc, for the longest time, the older generation,
Certain cut-off.
Matatawa kayo dun. Diba? We used to brag about the Philippines' advantage with language,
Yes.
proficiency of English and all that. Yun ang selling point natin parati, especially in this region. And now comes AI, which basically, at least one form, the bigger form of it is large language modeling.
Correct.
Which means basically that it collates and analyzes huge language databases in order to answer questions or to create solutions. So now that you have an LLM, which is a language expert, have we lost that advantage?
Well, that's a threat, and I think even IMF has acknowledged that in their report. Not so much that we lose the volume of work that we get, but then you have India #1, Philippines #2, and everyone's like a distant #3. But to give you an idea, Vietnam is proving to be an excellent place to outsource software developers, except they don't speak English. So there could be a potential later on for translation AI to help with that. But malayo pa yon. I think the challenge now is we're doing well as an industry. I'm talking BPOs. How do we maintain that, be defensive about our position, and then expand? We still have a massive edge in terms of English language.
Well, Jack Madrid was talking about having a finishing school, catered to what the demands are by the IT BPM industry. Kumbaga, parang every client has a specific set of demands for its product. Is that in the works?
Yes, we recently signed a partnership with TESDA and DepEd. The idea is, there's a phenomena, education experts are looking at this, called labor skills mismatch. So what the industry wants to hire isn't exactly what schools are producing. And that's the finishing part. A lot of it is communication driven. A ratio that we're watching is how many people get declined, those who apply. Last time we checked, it was in the area of 80 to 85%. People applying to BPOs get rejected.
Why?
Primarily communication. They're not, they don't speak fluent enough English, but they have the technical skills.
In terms of the interview portion
Correct.
the application process.
But the paradox there is, despite that 15%, we have the second largest industry in the world over the past few years. So imagine if we're able to widen that margin, we could double that labor pool in no time. So a lot of it is really, ironically, we're good in English, but then we're also very perfectionist when we assess applications. And again, that's another opportunity for AI. Like for example, if you're manning a chat interface for a BPO, you may not really need to speak good English, but combined with a chatbot, you can respond to customers' queries fast and efficiently. I think that can make a massive difference in terms of the inflow of new transactions you can do.
But I think so far we're talking about the ideal. I mean, if you have all these good workers with good English and good skills, what about in very practical terms? Kasi 14% daw, sabi ng IMF, that's 1 out of every 7 jobs. Low complementarity, meaning in danger of getting lost in total of the Philippine workforce.
I think the way we see it, based on our own internal data, so we said 8% jobs lost, 13% jobs gained. But then there's this 50% who have, these are companies who have admitted the jobs are changing and we need massive upskilling. I
Massive
think
upskilling.
that's the controllable part. Kasi the 8 and the 13, that's really just dependent on supply and
Yeah.
demand from abroad. And I think that's why we really need to work together with government, private sector. In many ways, it's already happening. Like manpower agencies, they play a big role in BPOs. They're the ones who do the finishing, and then they hire en masse. There's got to be a way of institutionalizing that.
Which industries do you see huge opportunities
Well,
for those looking for new jobs?
Here's an interesting tidbit. Do you know that there's a nursing shortage in the Philippines? And it's because
Kasi
BPOs are
mababa.
hiring them.
Yeah.
Medical BPOs. So they do care plans, they do telemedical consults. And here's the cool,
Plus, we don't pay nurses enough.
yeah, and here's the cool life hack. Most of them would have probably boarded a plane to go abroad.
Abroad,
no?
yeah.
Instead, they get to stay here. They're paid more than the average nursing job. And every year they spend in that job counts as nursing experience.
Really?
So
Even
one
if
life
it's-
hack yun.
But even if it's not hands-on.
Well, because they're dealing with clients anyway, they're dealing with patients. There's another industry. I actually studied accounting, never practiced. So there's also an accounting shortage. Can you believe it? Because financial BPOs are like sucking them out of the system.
Is there a lawyer shortage as well? Or?
Well, there are some emerging AI companies looking at the legal
Really?
profession, but that's an interesting trend. Like no one actually ever
Maganda
thinks.
yun, no?
Okay,
Kung
sige,
meron
ako.
kang consult na AI na ano, no? Taga contact center.
Is there a
Political AI?
shortage?
Yeah, maybe we'll need to have this conversation in a couple of years to think about it. But think about it. There was a recent World Talent Report that usually, as usual, puts us at the very bottom. No? And of course, everyone would love to chime in. Our education is all over the place. We need to improve. But I gotta wonder, how can our talent be the least competitive when our OFWs are highly sought after, when we have the second highest, biggest BPO sector? So I feel that the Philippines needs to, amp its, PR because I heard an economist say we export people and we import everything else. So if we agree that labor is our best export, OFW and BPO combined, I think it behooves us to make sure that our export is of highest quality.
But it also, sir, depends on what kind of labor we export, and you're looking at a huge range of
Certainly.
jobs that
Certainly.
go abroad. But going back to the recommendations ng IMF is for government to invest in digital infrastructure and education to strengthen the social safety net. Are we?
Well, our Congress is about to end. There's an election coming up. So we were monitoring the scene on AI bills. I think there were no less than 10. Unfortunately, all of them are going to go, to the archive.
Yeah,
they
abutin.
need to get refiled.
Re-election.
But part of some of those bills were looking at social safety nets, because the idea here is you want to transform your labor from like non-AI to AI augmented labor. So who's going to pay for that interim period that people are upskilling, and getting retrained? I think that's where the thinking is. As opposed to before, I think there were moves to, I think one of my interviews here was about that law. Like there's somebody proposed a ban. Now you can't fire people because of automation. It's going to be hard to enforce.
Yeah,
But
I
at least
imagine.
the later laws were already looking at social safety nets. On the infrastructure, certainly you need the usual internet connectivity. Can't access AI without the internet. But I think one term that hasn't entered the mainstream yet, but we're going to be popular, is called sovereign AI. And that's AI developed locally for local use. I think Vietnam and Thailand are doing that. And the reason is very straightforward. All of this AI stuff, we're all dependent on technology in, let's say, California, in Meta. It's all based in California. What if one day ChatGPT were to go down? You don't want to be dependent on one platform. So sovereign AI obviously is a good dream, but it implies that we have data centers, we have connectivity, we have talent, and that's going to be
It's
a
like
more...
a Google that's based in the Philippines.
Certainly, yeah. And we have the talent. You know, we have people in DOST, we have a center for AI research, but we need to invest in like the hard infra. You know, these things. If you want to develop your own foundation model, they call it, your own chat GPT, your own large language model, it's going to take a lot of infra to do it.
Well, I guess cybersecurity also, if you have lots of data.
Yeah, I mean, that's historically not something the Philippines as a country has been quite popular at enforcing. However, in the BPO industry, our cyber experts are some of the best in the world. We even have cyber companies. There was a new member of IBPAP. They're a major cyber employer in the UK. And they're now outsourcing work here. So it's a testament that there is talent out there, but you have to build the infra to maximize that talent.
The I Love You virus was created by a Filipino.
Among many other viruses.
Many other viruses.
Do you see this creeping in all industries? I mean, AI, because you already talked about a shortage in nurses, a shortage in accountants. I mean, in a major way in different industries. And what would be your advice for those lost in all of this development?
Well, there's two ways to appreciate it. On an individual level, if you're not using AI yet, you should be using it. I mean, if LinkedIn stats are to be, believed, most people are using it already. They're using it for anything, Most of it use the AI like you would use Google. Just ask questions, you get the answer. But I think the big message is really enterprise adoption, companies. And that requires some more thought. You want to look at privacy, security, cybersecurity, and integration with old systems. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. If you're a company at least 10 years old, most likely your systems are out of date. Some companies don't even have any low-level IT system. And you need data to maximize AI. So I think these are things that need to be
What would be the
first.
best success metric of AI adoption? Is it efficiency, speed?
The ROI.
Ano metric nyo?
Well, I think the first is productivity. If it used to take you 20 people to do something, it takes you 10 na lang. Doesn't mean you're going to cut your workforce in half. It just means you've doubled your capacity. The next is, especially for creative fields, I'll include journalism in that sector. AI can be a massive tool to enhance creativity. But then the risk is copyright.
Yeah.
If we have to close that loop, then people start using AI for for creativity.
Medyo nahihirapan na raw mga guro na mag-check ng mga paper kasi yung iba daw masyadong matalino yung mga essay
Biglang
nila.
tumatalino ka mo. Yeah.
Oo.
Well, in education, I have to admit, they're in a tight spot because our education system, sorry to say it, hasn't really changed much since the early 20th century. We're using a lot of outdated methods. So there has to be a serious overhaul of our curricula. And that's part of the reason IBPAP has partnered with DepEd and TESDA. In India, for example, there's an institution called the IIT, the Indian Institutes of Technology. This is something worth emulating. This is a system that was done in the 90s. And the idea there was industry will, in a way, dictate to schools. Ito yung skills na kailangan namin. And schools, please supply. So, di ba, I mentioned earlier, we reject 85% of those who apply. In India, they accept 60%. Totally the opposite.
Wow.
But there's some hope. Just this year, primarily by ITBPM players, we helped launch the Philippine Skills Framework. It's this document that basically came from the industry, mostly BPOs. And we're saying these are the skills that our people need. Please, schools, supply them. Of course, the other half now needs to happen once you've given them the template. We now need to work aggressively with the schools to supply the skills.
I'm tempted to ask one more question, but I'm being told that hindi na pwede more time. Hindi na pwede talaga. Sige. Sige. Doc, I'm afraid.
There's another episode.
Yeah, we should have you again. We should have you again before the year ends. But maraming salamat, Doc Ligot of the IT and BPM Association of the Philippines. Talagang Doc Ligot, sir?
Yes.
Ilang
Not to
araw
be confused with Dr. Ligot. That's my brother.
Ilang araw nilang matatapos na yung taon niya? Sa Monday.
But I also want to ask about education kasi the problems of teachers with AI. But anyway, sige, we'll have that for another discussion.
Thank you so much for joining us on The Big Story tonight. Well,